Well, as you may know by now, Ron Paul, not really one to mince words. The straight-talking Republican presidential candidate, though, got some boos, few jeers at the CNN Tea Party debate a couple of nights ago. This happened during a heated exchange about 9/11 and what was behind the terror attacks. Take a listen.
They want to kill us because of who we are and what we stand for. And we stand for American exceptionalism. We stand for freedom and opportunity for everybody around the world. And I am not ashamed to do that.
As long as this country follows that idea, we're going to be under a lot of danger. Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda have been explicit. They have been explicit, and they wrote and said that we attacked America because you had bases on our Holy Land in Saudi Arabia. You do not give Palestinians a fair treatment, and you have been bombing. I didn't say that. I'm trying to get you to understand what the motive was behind the bombing.
And Congressman Paul joins me now live from the Capitol. Sir, thank you for being here. So let's just start with that. Are people misinterpreting or maybe even oversimplifying what you're saying? Because some people took your response as saying the U.S. brought 9/11 on itself. Is that what you were saying?
Obviously not, because I'm an American, you're an American, I don't blame you, but I do blame bad policy, and there's quite a bit of difference. But, you know, what I'm saying is not new or strange. It's been around a long time. The CIA is actually the one that, you know, introduced the term blowback, and the 9/11 Commission acknowledged this. As a matter of fact, after 9/11, we removed that base from Saudi Arabia. So it's nothing new. But I think if you ignore the real cause and claim that we're being attacked because we're free and prosperous, we're missing the boat. As a physician, I always have to know the cause of the disease to correct it, and to ignore the cause doesn't solve our problems whatsoever. But to turn this around and say that we're exceptional and we have to do this, I think we are exceptional. I just resent and resist the temptation to force our exceptionalism on other people through force. Once you do that, you lose all your credibility as being exceptional.
But haven't Al-Qaeda, bin Laden in particular, in a letter he wrote to the United States, he did talk about the Palestinians and how there was a lack of support for them. But he also mentioned America's freedoms and what we're allowed to do. He mentioned, I mean, things like gambling and how women flaunt themselves around. He did mention some of those freedoms and wanted to impose Islam on the rest of the world. So isn't that the freedoms the United States have? Don't you acknowledge that bin Laden himself has also said, this is why we attacked you as well?
Well, there's only been a couple of individuals who have studied this. Michael Schur, who was the CIA agent that studied bin Laden more than anybody else, along with Robert Pape, who has investigated in detail every suicide terrorist attack that he could find. And he says 98% of the suicide terrorism attacks against us, the main motivation was occupation, and religious beliefs had nothing to do with it.
But we're talking about 9/11.
Wait. But you don't see suicide terrorists coming out of Iran, and they're radical Islamists, but they do not come from Saudi Arabia, but they come from places that feel abused, and they did. I mean, 14 out of the 19 came from Saudi Arabia because of the bases there and our puppet government there. And the CIA was aware of this, know about it, and for us to just say and be in denial and say it has nothing to do with it, and that they come here because why don't they go after the countries that are freer than us? Why don't they go after Switzerland, or why don't they go after Sweden or Ireland or somebody? No, they don't attack those countries because they're free and prosperous. So it makes no sense, because we have to, in order to justify our policy in the Middle East, Islam has to be the enemy, and I think that's wrong. There are radicals in the Islamic community and the Muslim community, but that is not the sole reasons why we have this problem.
Well, I'll leave that topic there. I'll turn to another part of the debate from the other night, and another part where it certainly got the crowd riled up. And this is when our Wolf Blitzer was asking you the question about what you would do, the hypothetical about a 30-year-old who chose not to have medical insurance. Let me get your reaction first, sir, to when Wolf Blitzer asked you. He said, would you just let him die? And several people in the crowd, you could hear some clearly yelling out, yeah, and applauding that, yes, we should let him die. What is your reaction to people in the crowd having that attitude?
No, I can't. You know, it's so overly simplified to explain a philosophy on how you take care of people in 30 or 60 seconds. All I know is if you look at history, and if you compare good medical care, and if you compare famine, the countries that are more socialistic have more famines. If you look at Africa, they don't have any free market systems and property rights, and they have famines and no medical care. So the freer the system, the better the health care. And for somebody to turn around and say there's one individual who didn't have this care, you know, all of a sudden you hate people and you're going to let them die. I spent a lifetime in medicine. To turn that around like that is just foolish. And besides, I tried to explain that night that I practiced medicine in a time when we didn't have government dependency, which is now bankrupt, by the way, and they were taken care of. There were no people out in the street. Nobody get thrown out on the streets. People got taken care of, and churches and other volunteer organizations. I still have a hospital that is a charity hospital in my district that is a burn hospital, and nobody has to pay if they don't want to or they can't pay. So this whole idea that the world will not provide for people if you don't depend on government, freedom provides more prosperity and better health care than all the socialism and welfareism in the world.
But I guess you hit on it there, sir. Well, who pays? Somebody still has to pay for those folks through charity. Somebody still has to pay for them as a neighbor. If someone makes a conscious decision, I'm not going to take care of myself. So the question I guess certainly Wolf was trying to ask you, is your option just then to let them die? And I was asking you, what was your response, or what is your reaction to the crowd saying, yes, that's what we should do? It doesn't sound like...
In my answer, he said something about, you mean you should do nothing and society has no responsibility? I said, no. But I understand it differently. I want the maximum medical care and the maximum prosperity for everybody, and it doesn't come from big government welfare bankruptcies that we have now. What good is the government system of Medicare if it goes broke? I mean, our quality of care is down drastically in these last years. All this idea that government is always going to be there to take care of us, this whole idea of turning it around and saying, oh, you people who believe in freedom, you have no compassion. I believe nobody can compete with me about compassion, because I know and understand how free markets and sound money and a sensible foreign policy is the most compassionate system ever known to mankind. So if you care about people, you have to look to the freedom philosophy and limited government.
All right, well, we'll have to leave it here, and I want to get your answer, because a young man asked a question that I thought was one of the best I've ever heard in a debate, and he didn't really get it answered. It was the young man who got up and said, of every dollar that I earn, how much of it do you think I should keep? And he didn't get a lot of answers to that. So I'll ask you that, sir. Of every dollar that an American earns, how much do you think he or she should be allowed to keep?
Well, I didn't get to answer it. I'm delighted you asked the question, because my answer is 100%, because I don't believe in the income tax. It's a bad system of collecting revenues for the government.
100%. All right then, sir. We will see. I think a lot of people would like that answer, actually, Congressman Paul. We do appreciate we do appreciate you being here, and we'll certainly see you down the road.
Thank you.
All right, we're about 13 minutes at the top of the hour. Quick break. We're right back.